So I promise, it's been a long day of grueling sessions and, a lot going on, there's a traffic scare, and it's tough between now towards the end of the day, and also for the guys that want to stay back, the bar will open soon, because I've been stuck between a hard rock and a place, so we'll keep it down to 4 or 5 quick visual slides. I have no crammed content, I have no big statistics, because we've got a lot of great consulting guys coming in here and doing that, which is great for us too. I represent GreenHonchos, logo somewhere. So we are a D2C enabler. We've been in this for a very long while. We failed for the first few years, and we've succeeded a bit with about 100 odd brands that we are, partnering with anywhere in the e-commerce landscape. Brands, retailers, whether it's through tech, whether it's through digital, or whether it's through performance solutions, as well as the marketplace side. So with this entire emergence, I think there's a lot of clutter. We try and take the headache away so that brands and retailers can take, can really focus their time on their core, which is their product. However, our skill is primarily e-commerce. That's all we do. As one of the supporters of the CX forum, just by chance, as we could say, in the last few years, the drift has been that over 80% of the brands we serve are in the fashion space. So fashion, apparel, footwear, accessories, lifestyle, which made it slightly more relevant for me to get a keynote here for a few minutes. 6-7 minutes max, 3 to 4 such visuals, and I'm done. But we really are calling this the time of the journey from content to commerce. What I mean by that is probably 3 years back, there's a lot of circumspect around e-retail. And the thought really was, let's give some performance marketing money. If there's ROI, we'll continue to scale. And that worked till a point. It was what we proverbially called the T20 game. But however, I think the predecessor, had an analogy on cricket. I'll take that forward. I think the longer versions of the game is what makes legends or makes brands. The rest continue to be labels. Some of the brands we've served, I don't know if Rare Rabbit sitting here, have been a great example of how the journey from content to commerce has been traversed in the last 24 to 36 months. If I was taught how to move this. Yes? Okay. The next, space that we want to continue to talk about is consumer experience, which we're calling as the next competitive battleground. But even within this, I'll just focus on 2 or 3 things when we talk about the entire concept of consumer experience. There was a discussion I was moderating earlier today where some legendary brands were talking about the fact that, loyalty may be a misnomer of sorts with the advent of a tremendous number of D2C players that are digital first and are able to reach further. But just one such small thing as search. Conceptually, we all search. We know how to search on marketplaces because that's the only way that you can actually access anyone's fashion catalog. It's just too large. Even for offline now, we're always searching online, offline and then going online. We know that. But the search on the site is generally fairly poor. It's very different from anyone who searches on Google. And we really need to figure out how, for the consumer, is a Google search different from an on-site search. But all of us know it's radically different. So let's use an analogy. I was talking to a Western wear brand, and they were saying, black dresses for women. You can't do that search on site. You do that search on Google. But the consumer doesn't know much of the difference. So I do believe that in the customer experience, we've also seen through Google Analytics that via search, the conversion is 40% above when you're actually accessing it through the menu and the category. So sometimes brands and merchandisers get fairly stuck in the categorization, but it's extremely critical to figure out that the consumer may not be going through that decision tree. That was one of those points. The other is, from a consumer experience perspective, we're calling them barriers to exit. There are certain, need-based categories. Let's say when you book an Uber, or when book a meal on Swiggy, etc., you're willing to pay any convenience / inconvenience charge, etc., because it's a need-based action. However, when we are talking in relevance to fashion here, it's almost always an impulse-based purchase when you're served something and you're in the mood and you want that experiential opportunity. But then, there are a lot of these riders and it kind of becomes a bit of a jigsaw puzzle to go from the add to cart till the conversion. I would strictly urge all D2C brands to not get cute with that part of the journey, because there's way too much more dollars going in top of the funnel to get traffic from third-party sources to the website itself. I think all the cuteness can be in that first mile, not the last mile. So that would be just one of those thoughts. Last but not the least, overly spoken about, mobile first. I think we all know that. But what's typically happened in the past is there's been mobile responsiveness, where it is device adaptable. We'd actually go the other way around, saying mobile first and desktop adaptive, which is your true proverbial PWA or your progressive web app. Since we do tech and digital, we've actually been able to hide a lot of our performance marketing sins by being slightly better on the tech side, because it's always easier to blame that, and probably the fixes are much more stable in that area, not necessarily depending on what we call as EEF or external environmental factors, like cost per impressions or the person's mood when he's changing budgets between campaigns and things like that. So yeah, from a consumer experience side, I think that was a few of my thoughts. So these colorful visuals just to keep everyone awake for a little longer. But when it comes to customer acquisition, the holy grail, we just said that in the office a few days back, that organic seems to be the new paid. And this is a slightly more digital-friendly language. When I'm saying organic, I don't mean SEO only. It's all forms of non-paid. And when I say paid, I don't mean performance only. It's any kind of, earned media versus, paid media. See, the reason I say that, and yeah, we just got another slide or two, but the reason I say that is iOS has already moved into a cookieless environment. The user controls, what can be tracked. We all know the bottom of the funnel and retargeting is much more useful than the top of the funnel when it comes to conversions. But if you don't have cookies that are trackable, a huge part of the marketer's repertoire is out of the game. Android has also announced that by 2025, the cookieless environment is going to be, where it is in the iOS arena. I think it's at best still at about 15%. So marketers are still placing the bet on 85 and saying, okay, the Pareto will still work. But when Android begins to make that shift, I think digital marketers are hurrying to broad base their channels or their sources of traffic. It all depends on which, and many brands may not be facing these segments. There could be traditional brands that are just scratching the surface on digital. This problem would be something that's saying, we've not even hit that problem. But trust me, this is the time everyone's going to hit that problem, because the 4s and 6s are no longer available via performance marketing. I'm hitting myself in the foot by saying that, but I think that's the need of the hour to broad base your marketing channels. Our first slide was content to commerce, which is branded content. I think that's absolutely mission critical to be able to figure out that what generates more share of the voice, what generates more brand love. These are age-old adages even from the offline space that hold completely true now because of the online market being extremely cluttered already. So we were just talking to someone from Shopify, and they were talking about nearly 100 brands per day, almost all SMEs, going live on Shopify. So imagine the clutter, because at the end of the day, the ad platforms are not native. They don't recognize brands versus labels versus startups, they would give everyone the same real estate and we'd still have to stand out from there. So from a customer acquisition standpoint, we'd highly recommend continuing to broad base and building the SOV. Okay. So what we call as website VM or online VM, the masters are in the offline space and brands, so we have absolutely no credentials to talk about it. But from a e-commerce enablement standpoint, we are seeing this playing a huge part. We talked about search, we are going to talk about sort and filters and how the assortment shows up. We were in a meeting with a huge brand that is also here today and well awarded and reputed. I think one of the biggest challenges is inventory exposure, and when we talk about inventory, we are talking about sizing. Marketplaces versus D2C, very different assortment sells. So trying to pick bestsellers from marketplaces and thinking that they would sell on your own D2C, flawed strategy. If anyone says, okay, I've got 1.5 lakh pieces, we're only interested in the health of the inventory and we're saying remove the rest from your own D2C. Sell them all on marketplaces, they'll sell till the last piece. But if you have a higher quality of inventory, your conversions will absolutely shoot. And also this is a challenge with shared inventory because historically almost all brands that have gone omni-channel or are using multi-inventory systems to power each of their online portals, the inventory swings are too much because due to events, maybe an Ajio, maybe something else, would sell a big chunk, but by the time your own D2C gets to know, you've spent in a lot of money and you've gone and your ROI has tanked. So I do believe that there is a critical play in terms of on-site VM towards conversion. So, that was one of those points. And obviously price parity, promotions parity, easier said than done, especially for offline brands. But it is a part of the leakage, that we talk about. Last slide, I promise you, is the elephant in the room, which is profitability in the D2C. A lot of the brands come to us and say, our marketplace has absolutely rocked in the last 3 years. We've done tens of thousands of orders per day. We need to own first-party customer data now because of this entire variability outside and the fact that the game is less in control from a tech and digital perspective, and this is where the future lies. So leakages, I think I can vehemently argue that the D2C unit economics exist. They exist within the unit economics of the marketplace itself, which means you can draw a line if you've been selling on marketplaces at a particular commission plus tax plus logistics, etc. Your own D2C can actually match that and now can actually match the scale as well, which was a big question mark. I think on the tech side, there can be a couple of things for this because optimizing profitability is not really, it can't be controlled manually upon growth. There are 2 or 3 areas that we can talk about. Everybody hates returns. Am I done for time? Yeah, last one. So everybody hates returns because there's a leakage. There's a leakage especially in fashion, amounted to nearly 30% at an average. Some brands 20%, some brands 35%. Footwear could be slightly different, etc. But even just getting your product catalog content right, which is your attributes and your size charts, can significantly lower your returns. The other is trying to convert as much COD as possible to prepaid. Again, everyone likes that, easier said than done. But there are a lot of BNPL players now, like buy now, pay later. They work. I'm not their reseller, but we've seen them working, so we've used them across, where customers for a 40 rupee benefit, for a 50 rupee benefit are willing to break their payments down into EMIs, increase your conversions, and it also assures the sale because it's non-COD, it gets accepted. Last but not the least, there's a lot of RTO AI being built into the system. So there's a lot of pin code wise removals basis geographies that comes from data from logistics players. But there's also segmentation that can be done at a consumer level, which is also important. And I believe with big data and AI, it's all going into pipes. You can easily work with logistics partners. We've worked with them for deeper integrations to really solve for this. Because if you can control your RTOs below 20%, this is a positive unit economics business. So that was a lot of rambling. I need to go fast because your eyes are getting bigger and I can't take it anymore. Thank you very much for your time. Take care.